Riot? Is this a joke to you? Well, at this point I've pretty much given up on the idea that we will ever get Yumi's full story. So instead, why don't we talk about what is happening with Lux's new comic? I'll be honest, I totally forgot about this comic coming out this week. But thank God it is already out, because it actually gave us a really interesting point to talk about. So if you are a fan of Prince Jarvan, this video will be for you. The comic also spawned some hilarious memes, but we'll get to that. When we talked about the comic in the latest episode of Rift News, I didn't know how much it would push the story of Demacia forward. Well, after reading it, I am glad to say that what Ghostcrawler said,
"This year you're going to see the timeline start to advance,"
is true. But enough foreshadowing. Let's break this comic down into its important pieces. Just like it was with the comic series War Mother, this comic series, which is simply titled Lux, starts the same way. The very first shot is a scene from the future, and in this case you can see that half of Demacia is on fire. And if you've been keeping up with the story of Demacia, you know that it is likely because of Silas. I don't want to go through the entire story now, because it is quite complicated, but here's a short summary. When the Rune War started and the majority of Runeterra was on fire, people started looking for a safe place untouched by the wars. One such place was in the Petricide forests. These were woods that had the ability to absorb magic, which means that in the age where mages ruled the world, no mage could even touch this place. So naturally, Demacia was founded here as a city that would protect common people from mages. Unfortunately, many years later, remembering the horrors of the Rune Wars, Demacia kept its anti-magic politics. So to this day, they still don't allow any practice of magic in their region. And anyone who was born with the ability to use magic was afflicted in the eyes of true Demacians. However, not everyone chose to be a mage. People are simply born with it. And that's how the Demacian Civil War started. The capital of Demacia, which funnily enough is simply called the Great City of Demacia, is focused on purging all magics from their lands, regardless the circumstances, while the common citizens of Demacia simply want to live in peace. The irony in Silas is that he is a mage that has the ability to see other mages. So when he was a child, he was used by the Demacian military to seek out the afflicted. So in the end, Demacia was using magic to purge magic. Unfortunately, during one of his missions, Silas couldn't control his magic, and he killed an innocent child. That's how his service to Demacia ended. The final straw that finally started all this mess was that during Silas's service in Demacia, he learned how many high-ranked Demacians are actually also mages in hiding. But while they lived on a high horse, the less fortunate mages were locked in chains and thrown into exile. This injustice made Silas break out of his prison and bring real justice into the lands of Demacia. And by uniting all the outcast mages, he effectively split the people of Demacia in half. And this comic greatly expands this civil war. So let's have a look at what we actually learned from it. After the initial shot of future Demacia, the story of this comic actually starts weeks before that. At the very beginning, Garen shows Lux that the crest of the Crown Guard family gives them the freedom to do pretty much anything in the city. This could be one of the reasons why the teaser for this comic was the Crown Guard eagle, an emblem that plays a bigger part here. In any case, just the fact that Lux doesn't know the weight of her family name yet tells us that this story happens directly after Lux's updated bio. That is right after she traveled to the capital with her parents to see Garen become a member of the Dauntless Vanguard. It is also after Lux joined the Illuminators. Remember that the recent update changed the Illuminators. They are now a religious group dedicated to helping the poor and the sick. Anyway, right after Garen showed Lux what being a Crown Guard means, the conversation between them was interrupted by a female mage who escaped her prison. While Lux followed her wake and she helped those who were injured, Garen was determined to stop the mage, even at the price of some destroyed buildings. When they finally stopped the mage, two interesting things happened. Lux saw that the mage didn't even want to hurt anyone, and she began questioning the Demacian laws. The second thing is that this is the first time we saw what a mage seeker looks like. In the story, they were always described as mage hunters wearing blue cloaks and silver half masks. They also often carried a grey mark, which is a stone petricide disc that would absorb magic. It was a protection against mages. But as far as I can see, the grey mark wasn't actually revealed here. Anyway, after the mage was captured, Garen and Lux continued their ride through the city. And since Garen noticed that Lux was questioning the laws of Demacia, he reminded her the horrors of the Rune Wars, and he told her that without their laws, some individuals such as the mass murderer Silas of Dragborn would consume their nation. Unfortunately, every time Lux feels nervous or uneasy, her light goes out of control. And when her hand began to glow, she tried to hide it, but she wasn't sure if Garen saw it. Maybe he was just pretending he didn't see it. To break the silent tension, Lux asked Garen what happens to all the books the Mage Seekers find, and Garen revealed that all the books are locked in the Mage Seekers' keep. It serves as a massive library of all magic, but only those in the service of the crown may enter. So naturally, since Lux was on a quest to master her own abilities, this library was of interest to her. So hours later, she decided to visit that place. Trying the same trick Garen showed her earlier, Lux pulled out the Crown Guard crest and she was allowed entry. The guard who let her in introduced himself as Jarvan, which I am pretty sure is a cameo to the lead narrative writer, because otherwise this scene would be just a random introduction. Jarvan also wanted to tell Lux about the incident that happened in this library, but Lux dismissed him, so we will never learn what happened here. Anyway, when the guard returned to his post outside, Lux began exploring the library. In the next scene, we see Garen talking to his aunt, Diana. This is where things get really interesting. Also, if you've got a fetish for broad shoulders, this might be a dangerous scene for you. We know Diana Crown Guard from the stories of both Lux and Garen. She's essentially taking the place of their parents in the Demacian military. But you may also remember her from the story of Xin Zhao. She is the right hand of the king. In this scene, she and Garen are talking about Lux. And more importantly, they both know about Lux's flaws. Garen told Diana that he is afraid that one day Lux will say the wrong thing to the wrong person, and all she is going to be revealed, and at that point Garen wouldn't be able to protect her anymore. That's when Diana offered a solution. She heard that Garen's friend, Prince Jarvan, wanted to get married, and if Jarvan were to marry Lux, she would be untouchable. No one would dare to accuse her of anything. At the end of this scene, Garen says that he will go to the palace tomorrow, probably to discuss the marriage. This is the last time we see Garen in this comic, so we can assume this plot will be continued in the next issue. And remember, this comic has 5 issues in total. Personally, I really hope that Lux gets married to Prince Jarvan. This would be honestly the best way to push the story forward, and we would finally see some progression in characters. I would love to see Lux slowly evolve from a nervous mage to the Queen of Demacia. It would be awesome to see Jarvan IV as a powerful warrior king, with a mage queen by his side. With this combination, there would be an infinite potential for story development in Demacia. Everything would be in line with the ongoing civil war, and what makes Demacia unique would still be there. Those who hate mages would beg Jarvan to make Demacia great again, and all the mages in hiding would come to Lux for help, and both sides would try to turn Lux and Jarvan against each other. The amount of plot twists in this storyline would be incredible. I really hope this storyline goes through, but I am afraid that Riot might decide to keep the two characters separate. In the past, Riot liked to avoid majorly changing characters, with the only exception being Gangplank, who was getting a rework. I am afraid that Riot might pull off The Simpsons, and everything will return to the normal state at the end. And honestly, we need those twists. We need to see characters changing and reacting to the world. Now back to the story. While Garen and Diana were discussing the future of Demacia, Lux studied magic in the Mage Seeker's library. She read the magic books for hours, but there was nothing that would tell her about the deadly beams of light. So instead, she decided to explore the rest of the Mage Seeker's keep. And the deeper she explored, the creepier things got. When she finally reached the catacombs, she was stopped by 2 guards. But just like every person in the capital, they allowed her to go through when they learned she was a crown guard. Because these catacombs were dangerous for normal visitors, Lux had to be escorted by the warden of this prison. He explained that they kept all the people waiting for their trials here. Some of them would be proven innocent, but most of them were mages. When they reached a staircase that would take them even lower, the warden tried to tell Lux that there is nothing important there. But nevertheless, Lux wanted to know what the Mage Seekers were hiding. And when they reached the lower levels, things got even worse. People in the lower cells were tortured in an attempt to cure their affliction. One example we got is purification by the Petricite elixir, which you may actually remember from the old version of Lux's story. Originally, when her parents found out what she was, they called an alchemist to try and cleanse her in secret, and their last resort was a Petricite elixir. This concoction was infused with Petricite, and it would literally rip magic from your body. But if you are born with magic, it is in your veins, so we can only imagine the pain it would cause to someone affected by magic. Either way, we can see its use in this comic. At this point, Lux saw almost everything the Mage Seekers kept here. Only one massive heavily guarded door remained. When they approached this door, the warden insisted that they couldn't open it for her. It was the first time he said no to her. And you need to remember that talking back to a crown guard could be considered an insult to the crown. So Lux knew there was something very important behind it. Something the king or anyone around him didn't know about. So Lux forced the warden to open the door so she could investigate. Now, before we jump into the final scene of this comic, we need to stop for a second. Honestly, I don't mind the slight change in the art style compared to War Mother. But this face says it all. I think we got a new meme on our hands. I tried to infuse it with Pikachu, but I don't think I need to. As I said, I am here for the story more than the art. And again, in my opinion, it is totally fine. But if you guys are interested in a take on the art, TBSkyn has a video where he dives deeper into what happened here. I am not an artist, so my opinion wouldn't have that much value. Anyway, let's jump into the final scene. The warden decided to let Lux in, but no one else. Behind that heavily guarded door was a massive cell. A cell that contained Silas, the legendary mass murderer. I'm not really sure if none of the crown guard really know he is here. After all, everyone knows who Silas is. So naturally, all the officers would also know where he is. So even though Lux thought that no one probably knew what the mage seekers were hiding here, in the end, it is likely that only Lux didn't know. Either way, this issue ends with Silas commenting on Lux's abilities. He can see what Lux truly is. And he sees the irony in her being free, while he is locked in there. This is the end of the first issue, and I can already tell you, it feels like this was a better setup for the story moving forward than the first issue of War Mother. I think it could be because War Mother had a lot of characters that we didn't know, but here we already know all the big characters. Demacia has a massive potential right now, especially with the new storyline of Lux and Jarvan. Again, I really hope that Riot isn't afraid of change and they go for it. This might be our first massive change to the world of Runeterra. Once we see some real political games being played in Runeterra, we'll know we are on a good path. Even though this is it for this video, let me leave you with the cover art of the second issue of the Lux series. And please, don't take this picture out of context. Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have neat mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.